Hello, my name is Amy T. Wiegand, and I'm here with Women Drone Responders Interview Series. Today, we are talking with Justine Hollingshead, Assistant Vice Chancellor at North Carolina State University. Welcome, Justine. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Yep, good. This is going to be a great conversation. Tell us, let's just get right into this. Tell us how you went from being a resident hall director at Ball State University in Indiana to assistant vice chancellor at one of the best institutions in our country, North Carolina State University.
Yeah, absolutely. Go Pack for sure. So when I first started in higher ed, I thought I was going to work in housing on a college campus for my whole professional career. And that certainly started at NC State. I just celebrated 30 years of service at the university, which is it's a bit surreal when you think about, I've lived in North Carolina and worked at NC State longer than any place even where I grew up. But I got to NC State and I wasn't quite sure where I was going to go after, but I was like, gosh, the South wasn't all that I was thinking it was going to be. And the state of North Carolina and Raleigh certainly have grown and expanded since I've been at the university. But I fell in love with the university and the area and the state. And the next thing you know, you're at a place for 30 years. I've not been doing the same job. I don't work in housing anymore. So when you live in a residence hall of all men and in the middle of the night, you're woken up because they're bowling in the hallway above you with full-size bowling pins and a bowling ball, you know it's time to move out and be grown up at that point. And so I've done a number of different things at the university and have had the opportunity to be involved from a leadership standpoint and now serve as an assistant vice chancellor in our division of academic and student affairs. So kind of non-traditional to also be talking about drones and some of the work that I do, but I try to take advantage of every opportunity that I can. So that's for me has been a great way to stay excited about the work that we're doing. I love being on a college campus. I love working with students and to also be able to give back and to keep learning. So as an adult learner, whether in the classroom or just in life, I think it's important to always be challenging yourself. So I went from that hall director and now I'm out and about. I fly drones. I might be teaching a class. I might be helping if there's an emergency on campus. I get to do a little bit of everything. So I'm a generalist in what we would call the higher education.
Okay. That's really interesting and good. I think your story is super helpful to people who think they have to be in aviation to be in drones. And obviously that's not the case. Tell us then how you have integrated your career with the drone technology at NC State U.
So I got into drones by happenstance. Like whenever I introduce myself, I'm at a conference, whether it's drone responders or a higher ed conference, and people, start talking to me, they're a little confused. As a matter of fact, we have a new vice chancellor for research and innovation at the university. She came from Georgia Tech. And she's looking at me. We were at a football game and I had my name tag on and it had my name and it said Assistant Vice Chancellor, Academic and Student Affairs. She's like, so drones, like, how is this? I was like, I know. It's like being a pink unicorn, but I stumbled into it by happenstance. And really because I have been an amateur photographer my whole life. I grew up in middle school and high school. My dad was amateur photographer. I learned how to develop film, back in the old days with, cameras that had film in them. And I it was a Sunday in 2017. It was April. And I was like, if I'm going to step up my game in photography and videography, I should learn how to fly a drone. Maybe I should just buy a drone. And so I sure did. I bought a Phantom 4, which this is not how I would ever recommend that somebody start their their career in being interested in drones. But that's really how it started. And I bought a Phantom 4, didn't know how to fly it, didn't know that there were rules. I assumed there were, but it was hard at the time, 2017, which seems like a long time ago, but not really that long ago.
Right.
And I purchased that Phantom and I taught myself how to fly. You can learn to do anything on the YouTube, as it turns out. There was no TikTok then. So I taught myself how to fly. And at the university, once people learned, because I was like, well, I'm going to tell people I now know how to fly a drone, which I didn't really know how to fly the drone, Amy, but I did, but I didn't. Yep. And so they're like, well, hey, do you think you could take the class photo? Because we have a big, at the time in 2017, our class size was probably 4,000, 4,500. And we had just renovated our basketball coliseum on campus. And so it had air conditioning. And so we did our convocation event in there to welcome new students. And then we take them outside. And I'm going to show a photo here. Okay. If I could get my first slide up. So the picture on the left is, so we have all the students come out of our Coliseum and we kind of have them shape out their graduation year number. So it was 2017, 2021. And so folks were like, hey, if you could take that class photo, that would be great. I was just like, sure. I mean, I was nervous. I hadn't been flying very long. I didn't have my FAA Part 107, but I didn't know I needed to have that. And I just, photography and videography, that was my sole mindset. And I was like, all right, if every now and again I can, take a picture for the university, that would be great. Fast forward to January of 2018, and the two photos you see on the right this is hands down probably one of the best days in my life. That it was snow, and we don't get a lot of snow in the South, by the way. And so you can see this is a fair amount of snow, and it was a gorgeous day. We canceled classes. It was gorgeous from the standpoint of the snow, because you can see it's cloudy here. I used that Phantom 4 and we went all over campus, a friend, colleague of mine. We shot footage. These are two photos from that day. And we put together this short little snow day video. And it's probably been viewed tens of thousands of times because the university pushed it out on social media. So I was like, well, holy cow, now I'm working for the university flying this drone. And I still, at that moment, I was like, I know there's probably rules and I should probably have something. So in the meantime, I'm trying to figure that out. I hauled the Phantom 4, which I called Donna the Drone, to Ecuador. So one of the things that I've been able to do as a part of my career is to do service learning with students and community. So we have done a medical service trip in the Amazon basin. So the photo that you see on the left is children. Any way to get kids to be interested in doing something, bring a drone out. So we're in the Amazon jungle. You see me in the bottom right, the controller with the Phantom. So I'm flying the drone and the kids were all excited. The photo on the right is Quito, Ecuador, the capital. And I was super nervous. That's the first night photo. This photo right here is the first night photo that I took with a drone. And it got me hooked on nighttime for sure. So, I'm just trying to find a way to connect with people, take pictures, video, in this case, get kids excited or get them willing to come and go through this clinic. And it was a great experience. Now, hauling a full-size Phantom 4 around from country to country and day to day in the Amazon jungle, that wasn't super exciting. I can tell you that part.
Wow. Yeah.
And then September of 2018, Hurricane Florence, I was deployed down to UNC Wilmington for 6 weeks to assist initially for their student affairs and leadership on campus. I have almost 30 years of service also in EMS and emergency management. So this is where, like, coming together my higher ed and my public safety emergency management background. So we had purchased, not long before hurricane season started, a Mavic Pro. So I had to convince my boss, our vice chancellor at the time. I was like, I think I've taken some photos with my personal drone. That probably shouldn't happen. We should own one if we're going to be doing photos and video. So I took that Mavic Pro with me down to UNC Wilmington. And these photos that you see here of small apartment buildings, that they needed to see what the roofs looked like. We were having some issues. These buildings actually ended up being condemned and torn down, and there's a gorgeous building in its place now. So I used the drone to help with some assessment of buildings for them as we were every day in the operations center for the incident response. Okay. So it really, for me, it started as a hobby and a passion. And then I realized there was a need connected with the work I was doing at the university. So I tried to figure out, and it wasn't easy at the time, Amy, like to figure out, like, how do you get started? And so it took a lot of trial and error. And in the fall of 2018, I started studying for the Part 107. I did an online test prep course through Drone Pilot Ground School. And I reached out to the CEO. I was like, hey, I've got some questions. And he's probably like, friend, why don't you just do the class online? But he was super helpful. Yep. And I did my Part 107 and I got certified in 2018 and have never looked back at that point. Now I know more than probably the average person and really learned a lot about what we need to do. Yeah.
No, that's good. We have some synchronicities there. As I was building a training program at the flight school, I worked with Alan at Drone Pilot Ground School too in the same time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love seeing that. But really, you have been a pioneer with many great people here. And tell us, though, how you have integrated this emergency management, higher education, drone ops with your current role. But before you even do that, you have been so instrumental in pushing growth in North Carolina with UAS. Talk to us a little bit. I've had the pleasure of having dinner with you and of your story. So tell us a little bit about the history of your help and support in the growth of North Carolina's drone ops, and then get back into the role and tie it all together and how it works today.
Sure. So it was really Hurricane Florence. So I went down and I realized that in student affairs, because I have 30 years of EMS emergency management experience. So, ICS, 100, 200, 300, 400, all the classes, continuing education, deployments after hurricanes. I was deployed after the earthquake in Haiti. So doing medical relief. And realizing that there is just lack of awareness and preparation in higher education. So, we're not good at asking for help in higher ed. We're like, no, I've got this. I can stay awake for 5 days straight. I don't need rest, versus when you're with the Red Cross or a CERT team or a DMAT team and you're deployed somewhere, police, fire, EMS, emergency management, public health, there's a regiment. You're going to work, a shift, 12 hours, you're going to get rest, you're going to come back, you're going to be doing those things. Well, in higher education, that's just not how we're built. So we're like, no, we've got this. And I realized at UNC Wilmington with Hurricane Florence, I was like, I need you to take a breath a minute here. Like this is the long game. There was damage to just about every building on campus. And at the time, I was like, they're not coming back in a couple of weeks.
Right.
It took them over 6 weeks to be able to come back and bring students back. And that was before pre-COVID, of course. And so teaching a chemistry lab online was going to be a heavy lift. We didn't know how to do that. So, for me, I was thinking about how can we just make sure people are trained more and more aware about personal preparedness and preparedness on campus. So it got me to thinking, we probably needed to be doing more to prepare folks in higher ed. Mm-hmm. So I, along with a couple colleagues, we pitched to our College of Education on campus to create a class in emergency preparedness. So it started as a pilot class, a 1-hour class, and is now a 3-credit-hour class that will become a permanent course in our higher ed program, and will have a cross-function listing with our College of Natural Resources, and a component, again, infusing drones and how we utilize drones for things like, wildfires, forestry health, assessing crop health after a hurricane or some type of natural disaster. So have created this course that can help a layperson, so not someone in public safety, to understand how to be personally and professionally prepared, and then what the university's role is in a situation, whether it's an active shooter or a public health emergency. So have really tried to utilize some of my professional experience to be able to do that. And all the while was still, learning and teaching myself how to fly a drone. And after Hurricane Florence, realized that the NCDOT was, so I was doing online research. And I was like, well, what are we doing in North Carolina? We're first in flight. So I stumbled across Kyle Snyder, who worked at NC State at the time. Yeah. And he's done a number of different things since then. And, I was just trying to meet people and network and figure things out, and learned that the NCDOT was pretty heavily involved. In the response effort after Hurricane Florence, we had utilized in the state drones to do overwatch and also in recovery efforts. Definitely as we experienced flooding, when you see some of the footage, just hours and hours and hours of footage of, flooded highways, flooded interstates, impact and damage on the eastern part of the state. And they were using drones. So I was like, well, I want to know more about that, because I had used our NC State drone to help just a little bit at UNC Wilmington. And so I just started, I was like, okay, well, who can I meet? And so Kyle, we at NC State had what was called the Next Gen Air Transportation Consortium, NGAT. And so Kyle was super helpful. He's like, well, hey, why don't you be a part of this consortium here on campus? And we're getting connected with, industry and government. And I was like, well, I'm not really at that point, it was 2017 into 2018. I'm just, got my Part 107. I've flown a little bit, but it was intimidating. And when you walk in and you're the only woman in the room, you're like, but I've been working in public safety a long time. So, that part I had to make sure that wasn't the driving force. Like, I'm going to let that limit me in some way.
Of course.
So I reached out to the DOT and I was like, hey, what are you guys doing? And realized that, there was just no one that was connecting dots between like the DOT in North Carolina. We have 17 universities that are a part of the UNC system. And in order to be deployed as a resource, you have to be tasked through the EOC for the state. And we had done that with UNC Wilmington. I was like, but nobody thought to send somebody officially that had a drone to help. So I was just trying to think of all the things that we could be doing. So I just started, it was like getting your Rolodex out, like, okay, who can I call and what can I do? And that's really how I started meeting people on campus, how I met Evan Arnold, who's our chief pilot for the university, who I met him when he was a student. He was just getting ready to graduate.
Yeah.
Kyle hired him full time. And Tom Zeszkowski, they both work in ITRE, our Institute for Transportation Research and Education. And so here's me in student affairs and these guys in ITRE. And, I was like, well, yeah, I just want to learn and, however I can be helpful. And in doing my research to see like what's going on, I stumbled across AIRT, the Airborne Incident Response Team, Chris Todd, and had the opportunity to meet Charles. And you just don't walk away from Charles without there being some consequence, which was, hey, you should be more involved, because I was worried that they were going to be like, look, you're in higher ed, you're not in public safety, even though I have a public safety, I have a foot in that camp. So I think that gave me some credibility.
Sure.
And so for me, it was, I just want to be involved. I want to learn. And, that has really served me well. I have another slide I can show here, some photos. Let me go to this one. So, lots of professional development outreach that we do, and this has evolved over time. So, the bottom right photos at AUVSI in partnership, our state booth, our North Carolina booth. So showcasing what we're doing in the state, which has been like the Wild West, trying to make sure that we're organized as a state and being a good partner with the DOT and other universities in the state, helping to do outreach with public safety. This top right photo is at the Utility Expo that I just went to this past spring to lead a walking classroom to help educate all these folks in the yellow vests standing behind me.
Nice.
Are folks who are in the utility industry, who are either a pilot, want to be a pilot, have pilots. So whether it's inspections or overwatch assessments, are using drones in some way, shape, or form. And then the bottom left is teaching kids how to fly drones. So, back to the Amazon basin, I didn't let anyone fly down with a drone. They got to see it fly, and I'd run the kids up and down the field because they think they can catch the drone. But then how do you help young people? How do you create that pipeline to help young people fly a drone? So this is inside a classroom on a cold Saturday, teaching kids how to fly a drone using one of a little small starter drone. So really everything soup to nuts, and, I'm learning how to fly and I'm getting flight time to now I'm trying to teach other people how to fly. So something in higher ed we refer to as imposter syndrome, where you feel like, oh, I'm not good enough to be doing this. I'm not good enough to be teaching. I'm not good enough to be serving in this role, when you really have to kind of set that aside and say, well, I am. And what I realized as I was interacting with even public safety, that we were all in the same situation. They're like, I don't know any more than you do. We're just trying to figure it out. And so it does help definitely to kind of ease some of those nerves. One of the things I'm proud of, that NC State were a training provider with AUVSI with a trusted operator training program. So creating a curriculum that can be used for anyone. It's online. We also do practical flight assessment, teaching pilots, helping public safety, particularly law enforcement and fire, to be more comfortable in flying and, and what that looks like. Yeah. So the things have just intertwined back and forth.
Absolutely. As life does. And I love what you said about imposter syndrome. I think men and women alike have that, especially in an emerging technology industry. We're all in this together, and we need to be very mindful of that. We're all learning together. And that's, Drone Responders' mission is education and awareness. And I love what you say. I'm always learning and always interested in figuring out how we can do this together. Super important. You're such a team player. I just adore you. Thank you very much for being that person. So beyond this NIST training and the partnership with AUVSI, talk to us a little bit more about how you are currently involved in public safety initiatives through the university and even personally. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, NC State is a part of ASHORE. It's a center of excellence. It's connected with the FAA, FEMA. So we have helped to create some courses connected with ASHORE specific for public safety, doing research. So one of the areas that we're embedded on research is emergency response. Okay. So how do you utilize drones? How are you more efficient? What works in different situations? Package delivery, meaning package of an AED.
Okay.
So actually, I have an AVIVE AED sitting behind me. When we were at the recent conference here in North Carolina in the fall, AVIVE, who's a drone manufacturer, NC State was a vendor, so we're in the exhibit area, and across the way is this AVIVE AED vendor, and I was like, what the heck? So I'm listening to the guys talk, and the first session gets started, and I go over to talk to them because, now I'm always thinking it's like, I wish I could shut the brain off sometimes. And I was like, I wonder what they're doing. Well, they're going to be working in Forsyth County and helping with Winston-Salem and AED delivery. And well, I've almost 30 years experience in EMS, and I'm still a part of a nonprofit called Community Emergency Medical Training and Preparedness. Mm-hmm. We used to be Cary Area EMS. We were a 911 EMS agency, a nonprofit, and we got taken over by the county almost 6 years ago now. So we're still a nonprofit, and we want to still be involved in the community. So we're doing training, CPR, first aid, AEDs, free flu clinics. We partner with the university, for example. They use some of our equipment. We've utilized, we've allowed use of we have an ATV, which we had just gotten right before we ended our 911 service. So we've used it at a search and rescue drill in Wake County. We let NC State borrow it for football games, for example. So trying to, again, be that connector and networking. Right. And so from that standpoint, I was like, well, what are we doing with these AEDs? And, how can we at NC State be helpful to advance some of those efforts? So, you have Hurricane Florence that happens initially for me. And then, realizing that public safety, back to that imposter syndrome, that a lot of public safety folks, feeling the same way, not putting words in their mouth, but, from that training perspective. So we're like, how can we help? So can we help organize exercises, training, make training available? So some of our trusted operator training, we, bare bones, just basic costs for public safety, making our training facility available, helping with the first drone responders state conference with you and others in the state, and trying to help get that organized. So everything from research and curriculum development to we have a partnership with Wake County Sheriff's Office that we're hopefully going to formalize in 2026 when it comes to some equipment they're testing if somebody is missing. So from a search and rescue perspective, particularly for individuals who could have dementia or children who are on the spectrum. So wearing a radio frequency bracelet and using a particular device that would attach to a drone. So Evan Arnold, who's an engineer at heart, he helped to engineer a way to attach this device to a drone. And so how can the university partner with a local LEO to be able to serve the community? And they're like, we need help, figuring out how to fit this on a drone and then storing it. And could we have access to be able, if there was an emergency and a need that they needed to deploy this device, that they could come to NC State, pick up a drone and go utilize it. So we're working on that piece too. So I wish it was clean. I wish it was like, hey, Amy, tell me what you need. I'm a problem solver. It's what I do in every facet of my life, but it's not that clean. It's a million things and all at once. So we really just want to, be at the table. We want to, build those relationships and have partnerships with public safety and as a university to say, we can help. Like if there's something you need us to try to figure out, 3D print for you, or help to do training, then we're a resource. And as the largest public university in the state of North Carolina, we should be helping to lead that way. And we absolutely have the support at the university level to do that.
Good. That's good. Well, you say it's not clean, but it's multifaceted, and you are hitting all the right spots to help people and to keep the innovation moving forward. So thank you on behalf of many people, because you're leading the charge with Evan and Tom, and Evan and Tom have been very instrumental in the growth of, drone ops in general in the state and not just at the university. So I want to give them an additional shout out from yours.
Yeah.
As we start to close our interview, I want you to talk to women and girls out there about getting involved. What is your advice, words of wisdom that you would offer?
Yeah, don't be afraid to be the only woman or girl at the table or in the room or in the classroom or on the field, and what that looks like, whether you're taking a class or you're firefighter and they're like, hey, who's interested in becoming a drone pilot? We want to start using drones in response, to not be afraid to be that volunteer. And in the words of Jim Valvano, don't give up, because it would be super easy to just give up because it's overwhelming. And you really have to kind of keep just pushing forward. And I guess having fun, I've turned a hobby into something meaningful for me personally and professionally. It's actually in my job description, our drone operations, the efforts that I do for the university. I forced the issue that, I was like, look, I want to have some assurance that I'm going to be able to keep doing some of these things. One, because I'm good at it, and two, because I like doing it. So it's actually in my job description. And so finding ways that you can tie your interests together and your skills to be something that can benefit you and can benefit others and be meaningful, and keep learning and practicing. Like as they say, if you don't use it, you lose it, practicing, and whether it's on a simulator or getting out there. I know it's hard for law enforcement. We just did some training with Wake County Sheriff's Office in the fall, and it's hard. They're on shift work. They're a drone pilot in addition to being a deputy. So it's hard to do that stick time and get practice. So I think for girls and for women, we have to work harder at doing it, because we are that single person sometimes in the room. So unless you're at Drone Responders and you're at the Women Drone Responders meeting, and then Chuck and Charles are the minority in the room.
True.
But yeah, so those would be my pearls of wisdom there.
That's great wisdom. Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing to support women in the industry, as well as move North Carolina forward in higher education. A lot of gratitude there, and congratulations on your accredited class. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for pushing that through and making it happen. How can people get in touch with you, Justine?
Yeah. So I will be at the National Drone Responders. NC State will also be at AUVSI. I'm the only Justine Hollingshead at NC State. So certainly reaching out that way, a social media presence as well. And, reaching out either through the university or through Drone Responders. Excited to be a part of our North Carolina group that is underway, and just happy to connect, and we're here to help depending what the needs are.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the mention. North Carolina working group has just lifted this fall, and unofficial announcement that NC State University will be hosting the inaugural North Carolina State Drone Responders Working Group Conference next year. So more to come on that, and more to come on the national conference, which is typically and always the second week in March in Williamsburg, Virginia at Busch Gardens. If you need more information on that, please log on to DRONERESPONDERS.org and follow along social media channels to learn more about the conference as information comes out. Lastly, if you are interested in getting involved in Women Drone Responders, we just lifted a discussion group through the app and on the webpage. You can join the discussion group and get notifications if you've downloaded the app from the Apple and Google Play stores, which is great. We'll be building upon that, and we're working really hard behind the scenes to become an organized part of the team at Drone Responders. It takes a village, as they say, right?
It does for sure. And you have done a great job in helping to pull all this together, along with Chuck and Charles, of course, and some others. But I think it's a great way to be connected.
I do too. Well, join us. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me, amy@droneresponders.org. I'm also on social channels, so don't hesitate to connect there as well. Thank you so much again, Justine. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yay. That went well. Do you feel good about it?